they're already taking up a major new gun control bill.
We did outlaw the printing of ghost guns.
It's already illegal to do everything in this bill here.
This new law would increase the requirements.
This will stop the printing.
A quiet legislative maneuver in one state is setting up a precedent that could change what you're legally allowed to own, build, or even print inside your own home. While most people were paying attention to federal headlines, state lawmakers quietly gave the green light to two massive pieces of legislation that target not just firearms themselves, but consumer technology, open source software, and the fundamental mechanics of exercising a constitutional right. What makes this move so alarming is not just what these proposals contain, but how fast they are moving through the Capitol halls with almost zero public debate. The moment the summer legislative recess came to an end, state representatives returned to work and immediately scheduled high-stakes committee votes on two sweeping proposals. The first piece of legislation targets the tech sector, attempting to force manufacturers to install mandatory algorithmic monitoring and digital blocking software on general-purpose manufacturing hardware. The second piece of legislation completely overhauls how law-abiding citizens purchase firearms, turning a basic administrative requirement into an expensive, multi-step permitting process complete with mandatory live-fire training in classroom hours. Together, these two measures represent one of the most aggressive legislative pushes seen in years, and their momentum shows no signs of slowing down. To understand how drastically the landscape is changing, one has to look at Assembly Bill 2047, authored by Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan. On its face, the measure is framed as an effort to address untraceable homemade items and conversion components. However, when you look closely at the actual text of the proposal, it goes far beyond existing laws and targets consumer hardware itself. The bill focuses directly on 3D printers, requiring any manufacturer that sells or transfers a machine in the state to build mandatory firearm blocking technology into the printer's core systems.
The one that they're going to be taking up on Wednesday is the worst one that I have seen in a while.
Very strong laws that require manufacturers to put numbers on guns, make sure that you get a license for it. Guns that are sold through, they continue to be printed. It's a hard thing to stop. Licensed dealers, these are printed in people's homes, and we are not able to track them.
Under the provisions of Assembly Bill 2047, the state would force manufacturers to integrate specialized blueprint detection algorithms directly into the hardware or software of every single consumer machine. These algorithms are designed to analyze digital files, geometry, and code before a machine is allowed to begin any task. If the system detects geometric patterns that match a restricted database, the hardware is programmed to automatically flag, reject, or shut down the operation. The California Department of Justice would be tasked with establishing performance standards for these algorithms and creating an official registry of compliant hardware. This requirement creates a massive technical hurdle that threatens the entire open-source software movement in desktop manufacturing. Popular open-source firmware platforms like Clipper, Marlin, and Orca Slicer operate on open customizable code created by global developer communities. Because these platforms are open source and modular, they cannot easily integrate proprietary, closed-loop government monitoring software. As a result, software developers and hardware manufacturers like Bamboo Lab, Elegoo, Soval, Kidi, and Lulzbot face an impossible choice: lock down their hardware into restricted proprietary ecosystems or pull out of the state market entirely. The economic fallout from such a requirement could trigger what industry analysts call the California effect. When a state with an economy as massive as California passes strict hardware standards, manufacturers rarely build two separate product lines for different regions. Instead, companies often apply the most restrictive standard nationwide to streamline manufacturing. That means a single state bill could force every consumer desktop machine in America to feature built-in hardware monitoring, higher consumer prices, and strict digital permission gates, effectively ending the era of open-source desktop innovation. What makes this bill even more heavy-handed is the enforcement mechanism embedded inside the proposal. Assembly Bill 2047 creates civil liability frameworks that allow state officials and private citizens to file lawsuits against hardware manufacturers or sellers who distribute non-compliant machinery. Furthermore, the bill makes it a criminal misdemeanor to disable, modify, or attempt to bypass any built-in detection algorithms. If a company fails to submit an official attestation to state regulators, their products will be placed on an explicit banned registry, making sale or transfer illegal.
New York passed this recently, and it allows to put technology on the front end that stops the components from being printed.
While the tech sector grapples with the implications of digital oversight, Gun owners face an equally dramatic shift in their day-to-day lives through Senate Bill 948, introduced by Senator Jesse Origin. This proposal targets individual citizens directly by completely transforming the existing firearms safety certificate framework. Currently, acquiring this certificate involves a straightforward written knowledge test administered at licensed retailers.
We did outlaw the printing of ghost guns.
However, Senate Bill 948 seeks to scrap that system and replace it with a comprehensive mandatory permit-to-purchase requirement that adds major hurdles for anyone seeking to acquire a firearm. Under Senate Bill 948, obtaining a firearm safety certificate will no longer be a simple matter of taking a paper test. Instead, citizens will be required to complete at least 4 hours of mandatory instruction from a state-certified instructor. This mandatory curriculum includes extensive classroom instruction on state laws, safe storage, and handling, followed by mandatory live-fire training on an authorized range. Every applicant will have to demonstrate physical proficiency, safe loading, and live shooting under the direct supervision of a certified proctor, all paid for out of their own pocket. The financial and logistical burden created by Senate Bill 948 cannot be overstated. Finding a state-approved instructor, securing range time, purchasing ammunition, and taking time off work to complete hours of training will impose significant financial costs on average citizens.
This new law would require you to take a training course. In early drafts of the bill, it was 8 hours of training, but in the latest draft, it's down to 4 hours.
Gun safety is important, and it starts at home. You should train your children in the use of firearms.
Under the new law, it is illegal to buy, sell, and make most semi-automatic firearms without background checks and training.
For working-class individuals and people living in low-income urban areas or isolated rural communities where range facilities are scarce, these requirements create massive practical barriers. If a buyer cannot afford the course fees or find an available instructor, they are effectively locked out of exercising a constitutional right altogether. If a buyer walks into a local shop without presenting a valid upgraded firearm safety certificate, retail employees will be legally prohibited from processing any transfer. The clerk will simply have to turn the customer away. This effectively shifts the dynamic from a right guaranteed by law to a conditional privilege granted only after satisfying expensive state prerequisites. The contrast in public policy discussions is striking. While lawmakers frequently debate whether basic identification requirements create unfair burdens in other areas of civic life, this measure imposes fingerprinting, fees, background checks, multi-hour courses, and practical performance tests just to enter a retail store. The speed at which these measures are moving through the legislative process is raising serious alarms across the nation. Both Assembly Bill 2047 and Senate Bill 948 have already cleared major hurdles in their originating legislative bodies. Assembly Bill 2047 sailed through its home chamber on strict party line votes before moving directly into the Senate Appropriations Committee. Meanwhile, Senate Bill 948 easily cleared the state Senate and advanced rapidly through House committees before reaching the Assembly Appropriations Committee. During recent committee hearings, state representatives pushed Assembly Bill 2047 into what is known as the suspense file. While sending a bill to the suspense file might sound like a delay, in state legislative procedure, it is often a routine step used to aggregate fiscal bills before fast-tracking them to a final floor vote. Once a bill clears the suspense file in the Appropriations Committee, it bypasses further public testimony and goes straight to the full chamber floor. From there, it requires only a simple majority vote before landing directly on the governor's desk for a final signature. This legislative strategy leaves very little time for public response or legal intervention before these measures become state law. If signed, the implementation timelines will roll out in phases. Provisions under Assembly Bill 2047 call for state regulators to publish official algorithm guidelines, followed by manufacturer attestation deadlines, ultimately leading to a full ban on non-compliant machine sales. On the individual side, Senate Bill 948 sets strict deadlines for training program rollouts, fundamentally altering retail sales across the entire state. Legal scholars and civil rights advocates are already analyzing how these two proposals will fare under current judicial standards established by the United States Supreme Court. Following landmark legal precedents like New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, court standards require state regulations to align with the historical tradition of firearm regulation in the United States. Mandating digital kill switches on manufacturing tools and requiring expensive multi-hour training courses prior to purchasing a firearm represent novel modern concepts that face immediate legal challenges in federal court. Despite the likelihood of protracted courtroom battles, state lawmakers continue to push these proposals forward as model legislation for other states to follow. The broader strategy appears focused on establishing new regulatory standards at the state level, creating precedent that can be replicated in other jurisdictions across the country. As committee deadlines approach and floor votes draw near, the outcome of these bills will shape the future of consumer technology, personal privacy, and constitutional rights for millions of people across the country. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.